What's happening, my people? 30-day challenge, week 4, mission number 2. Today we're gonna be talking about the tools used to improve the psychology part of the biopsychosocial model that has to deal with depression. So, what are the tools that are available to improve the psychology of depression, to actually get your brain from a depressed brain to a depression-free brain? I know that right now that might seem impossible to you. However, it is possible. Why is it possible? Because there is a concept called neuroplasticity. You see, 10 years ago, we used to think that our brains did not change at all, that you could not grow new brain cells, that it was the way that it was, and that's it. But that is way far away from what is true, and what we know is true now through the advances in neuroscience. We know that there is actually a lot of neuroplasticity, meaning it's kind of like saying that the brain grows just like a tree. Depending on the obstacles that it has, it just grows even stronger. So here we go. So today we're going to be talking about some of the tools that are used to be able to tap into our psychology. And so the first one is psychotherapy. Psychotherapy actually helps us to be able to dig into the underlying cause of things, right? There are emotional imprints. You see, whenever we are growing up, there are emotional imprints, and there are in this time, space, and matter, whatever we are right now, right? And I'm not trying to get metaphysical on you. It's just the fact that I have a clock. There's a time. There is a place, right? Space, and there is things that are around, people and houses and whatever, right? And so there's an imprint all the time going on. Like right now, there's an imprint in my brain, where I'm at, my car, the city that I'm in. There's an imprint of this. And so as we are growing up, there are imprints of this, and there is parts of our brain, actually the amygdala and the limbic system, there's a part in our brain that is actually trying to learn all the time patterns, just in case something bad happens. The brain has a record of what happened right before, right? It's almost like having a security camera in your brain. If something bad happens, if you realize the next day that you've been stolen, that somebody stole from you, then you can actually go back and review the tapes, right? It's the same with our brain. It's actually making an imprint all the time. And if something bad happens to us, it goes back and says, okay, what was I doing right before that? Oh, and then, like, let's say that somebody, like, something bad happens, like I fail a test, right? And the day before I studied, but maybe I forgot my Lucky Charm hat or something, and then my brain makes a connection between those two and says, okay, I failed the test because there is because I forgot my hat. And then from then on, it imprints that belief. And then after that, it's really hard to turn it back. And so psychotherapy helps us, like, go back into our lives and work through stuff that has happened that actually made an imprint in time, space, matter, and whatever was going on in our mind at that time, to be able to unlock it and see. Because once we see it, we can then deal with it. We cannot deal with stuff that we cannot see. So that's psychotherapy, right? We also have something called neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro-linguistic programming is called NLP for short. A lot of practitioners use it. A lot of life coaches, health coaches are familiar with it. I became familiar with it because I was intrigued. I've been to a lot of Tony Robbins events, and he uses a lot of neuro-linguistic programming. Also for business is used. So I became interested on it and ended up going into a month trip to Bali in Indonesia, in where I learned everything about neuro-linguistic programming, and I became certified on it, and it was amazing. It was really cool because it's like really quick tools to be able to deal with phobias, really quick tools to be able to deal with issues that are going on, and to help people see their own answers. We fix nobody. We have the answers within us. Sometimes we just need a mirror. Sometimes we just need somebody to ask us a couple of questions to have realization and to accelerate that process. NLP is super powerful, super powerful, super powerful. I've done it in many times. I'll tell you a story. I was in actually close to where I'm at right now, about 5 hours from here, up in the mountains in Guatemala. And there was a kid there who they told me that he was having seizures. And so then I go see him and I ask him more questions, and he was actually expliciting what was almost like an anxiety attack from something that had happened. And well, he was having palpitations, and he would kind of just lay down in the floor and really scared, start sweating. So I asked him and I said, what happened prior to this moment? And he said, well, what happened was that I was actually walking through the jungle and I saw a snake. And right away I became so terrified and I started shaking, my heart started racing, I didn't know what to do. And then every time he thinks about a snake, this happened. So what I did ask him to do was to close his eyes, because I've been training this, and it's amazing because people get relief right away, and so it's really cool to work with this. And so what happened is that you ask him to go through this thing, through this trauma, while you're there in a safe place, and then connect his brain to a safe place before and a safe place after, and then they feel a little safer going through that experience, knowing that anything bad happened to them. And I remember like seeing him when he went through it, he with his eyes closed, his little heart started beating. I took him through the experience again and again and again and again, being safe before, being safe after, again and again, until he stopped having the same emotional response. Never had a seizure again. It wasn't seizures, he was having panic attacks. Maybe it was the communication barrier, because it was from Maya to Spanish, from Spanish to English, so to Spanish. And so that's NLP. NLP is great. So we have psychotherapy, we have neuro-linguistic programming, we have shamanism, right? And so shamans are really cool too. I'm very interested in shamanism, in ancient practices. They know what they're doing in certain things, and it has its place. And so I went to become indoctrinated as a shaman myself, and it was such a cool experience because it's very outside the box, and the people there were really super cool. So I'm very excited, to learn about these tricks. And so shamanism, what it actually allows us to do is actually dive, same with questioning and imaginary, using our imaginations to actually guide us through our own problems, and then using rituals and music and drumming and community to help us through that. Very powerful. I think is amazing. And so we have the last one I want to talk about is cognitive behavioral therapy, short for CBT. Cognitive behavioral therapy is actually a therapy that helps us reframe the things that are happening to us. So let's say that I'm pissed off right now, and there are tools within cognitive behavioral therapy that will help you kind of go through a little process of questioning, and then at the end of it you'll feel a lot better. You've named what's going on inside, and you have empowered meaning and action tied to that lesson. And so really powerful. Cognitive behavioral therapy actually has been as effective, if not more effective in the long term, to antidepressants than medications, to depression, than to be as effective as an antidepressant than medications. So very powerful. In some studies it says that it's the same. Some studies it says that it's a little bit better in the long term. Some studies says it's the same, but it's pretty amazing. 30 to 60% improvement with cognitive behavioral therapy. So I want you to look through this, right, and pick one that you're gonna put in your plan. Just one. We don't have to do them all right now. Just pick one right now so that you can put in your escape plan. All right, so that we can then escape the psychology of the biopsychosocial model, to be able to replace the wall that we just knocked down with a tool. All right, everybody, that was great. Thank you so much, and great to see you guys. We're putting together the plan, and it's the last week. It's the last week for the escape plan, and we have more stuff coming your way to give you tools to be able to put this plan so that you have a specific plan to escape depression. All right, everybody, Dr. Z here. I hope that you guys have an amazing day, and remember, take it easy.